Imagine this. The road you use to get to and from work has terrible traffic. Every day, you spend hours stuck on it. Then one day, the government finally decides to do something about it. They widen the road, add a few more lanes, and boom, traffic now flows smoothly. But a few years later, something strange happens. The congestion is back. In some cases, it's even worse than before. And if this sounds familiar, it's not a coincidence.
This is Route 18 in New Brunswick, New Jersey, a heavily used highway corridor running through the city's downtown. In the late 2000s, the state spent $200 million to rebuild this section of the highway, aiming to solve traffic. However, while initial traffic improved, congestion returned over time. Today, it remains one of the busiest highway corridors in the region, carrying 70 to 90,000 cars per day.
So why does this happen? This is a phenomenon called induced demand. Induced demand suggests that when you widen a congested road, traffic may initially improve, but over time, the extra capacity changes how people travel and even how cities develop, eventually bring congestion back. Let me explain. So here we have a city, we have a suburb, we have an interstate highway connecting them, we have a rail line connecting them, and we also have a local route connecting them. So now these people, suburbanites, have to go into the city for work. And let's say we assume initially all of them are driving on this interstate highway. So this interstate highway gets really, really congested. And what happens is, let's say 5% of them say, I'll get up earlier to avoid the rush hour traffic. And then 5% say, I'll take this local route. And 5% say, I'll take the train. So some of these people choose to avoid this highway during rush hours. And you have 85% still trying to use this highway during rush hours. And what happens is there's still 85%, so it's still a lot of people. And so the state says, okay, we're gonna widen it. So they add another lane here. And for these 85%, initially, it's gonna be great because it's widened, so their trip will be quicker and there's gonna be less congestion. However, it's not just these people that are gonna use this highway. All of these people will make different choices because of this. Let's say these 5% who got up at 5 a.m. to avoid the traffic will say, now I'll get up at 7 a.m. and just use it during rush hour because there's more capacity. And these people who took the train or took another route, they say, I'll also use this highway now during rush hour and don't have to avoid it anymore because there's less congestion. So it's not just the 85%, there's other people that are going to shift back to the highway. Additionally, there's a thing called latent demand, which is, let's say there's a mall here, and previously people try to avoid going there because the highway was really congested. And it's not like they don't want to go there, it's because there's congestion, so they try to avoid it. And now, because there's a widened highway, now they make more trips to this mall. So it's kind of like demand that already exists but didn't make those trips because of the congestion, and now it's kind of released because there's a widened highway. And this is latent demand. And then we also have people who lived near the city before, and they make these life decisions because of this highway. And because there's more capacity, they make these choices to live further away from the city. And that also adds traffic to this highway. You also have more development that starts to spur near the highway now, and all this will add population and trips onto this highway. So yes, widening roads does add capacity, but it's not just the existing people that are still using this highway. Because of the widening, people who used other modes or take other routes or traveled at different times now use this highway, and people who didn't use this highway before, like people who live in the city or other things, they now all use this highway capacity. So that's why the capacity is being canceled out by the increase in traffic. And that's why widening roads we end up with, in the long term, you end up with a road that's as congested or even worse than when you started. The pattern of induced demand can be observed across the country and even around the world. One famous example is the Katy Freeway in Texas. The Katy Freeway is a section of Interstate 10 between the suburban town of Katy and downtown Houston. For years, Katy Freeway has been a traffic nightmare, so bad that one of its interchanges has been ranked the second worst in the nation. So in 2008, the state spent $2.8 billion to widen it. At its widest section, it consists of as many as 26 lanes. So you might think that must have solved traffic. And to be fair, it did in the first few years after the widening was complete. The American Highway Users Alliance even framed this widening as a success story to justify pouring more money into highway widenings. However, that success story didn't last long. Just a few years later, data showed increased commute times on the Katy Freeway during rush hours. A morning peak trip between Pin Oak and downtown Houston that took 47 minutes in 2011, 3 years after the widening, rose to 61 minutes in 2014, a 30% increase. Even in peak was even worse, increasing from 41 minutes to 67 minutes in the same section and time period, a 55% increase. In the past few decades, highway widening projects around the world have repeatedly proven the same thing. Adding more lanes won't solve traffic. Despite this, policies that have long favored roads and highways have led to the US spending more money on them than public transit, as shown in federal transportation bills of the past few decades. While billions and billions of dollars continue to go towards widening highway lanes, all it does is encourage more car dependency. So if widening roads increases traffic, can removing lanes reduce traffic? It might sound impossible, but in many cases, that is exactly what happens. A famous example is the Cheonggyecheon Freeway in Seoul, South Korea, a highway that was built on top of a natural stream in the mid-20th century. By the 1970s, the freeway carried around 160,000 cars daily and was severely congested. But instead of widening the freeway, Seoul did the exact opposite. It removed it. While many people feared that traffic would become even worse, it actually improved. Additionally, the city's buses and subways saw an increase in ridership in the years that followed. This is an example of what planners sometimes call traffic evaporation, a phenomenon suggesting that removing road capacity can actually improve traffic conditions. Just as people drive more when roads are widened, they also adapt when road capacity is reduced. Some trips disappear altogether, while others shift to walking, biking, or public transit. In addition to removing the highway, the historic stream beneath it was restored. Today, it has become a popular destination in downtown Seoul, attracting both tourists and locals. And Seoul is far from the only city that has taken down its highways. In fact, the same thing has happened in the United States. In the 1970s, New York State dismantled the West Side Elevated Highway, which once ran along Manhattan's western waterfront, and eventually replacing it with a surface boulevard. The removal of the highway allowed the construction of the Hudson River Park and the Hudson River Greenway, the busiest bikeway in the country. So what happened to the traffic on the west side? Surprisingly, when the elevated highway came down, traffic volumes in the area dropped by 53%. Besides New York, San Francisco removed the Embarcadero Freeway, Portland removed the Harbor Drive, and many other cities have taken down their urban highways as well. In most cases, the massive gridlock people feared never came to be. In fact, traffic conditions often improved. Traffic evaporation doesn't only apply to highways, but also to other types of roads. In many cities, travel lanes are being removed from streets in what urban planners call a road diet. Narrower roads can improve safety for pedestrians and cyclists in many ways, since more compact road designs typically slow cars down and are easier to cross. But what about traffic? As it turns out, the effects are often similar. This is Power Line Road, a major arterial road in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. In 2017, the Florida Department of Transportation narrowed the road from 6 lanes to 4 lanes and added protected bike lanes. According to the department's analysis, the impact on travel speeds and travel times was minimal. At the same time, pedestrian and cyclist injuries declined and bike trips along the corridor increased. All of this shows the potential benefits of reducing road capacity. In many cases, it has minimal or even positive impacts on traffic, while also improving safety and encouraging more trips to be made by walking, biking, and public transit. So, if added road capacity increases driving, what happens when cities improve public transit and bike infrastructure instead? Well, it turns out that when these alternatives become faster, safer, and more convenient, more people choose them. And this is not just theory. Studies using nationwide data in the UK have found that improvements in alternative modes of travel are closely linked to reductions in car usage. And you know what happens when more people walk, bike, and take transit? Traffic on the road decreases. But a fundamental difference between the induced demand of roads and that of transit or bike lanes is the time needed and the number of people that can be carried at their maximum capacity. So even though transit and biking also follow the rules of induced demand, it is actually a positive thing. This is where the idea of the Downs-Thompson paradox comes in. Basically, it suggests that there is a relationship between travel times of cars and public transit. If transit becomes more competitive, people shift. If driving becomes more competitive, people shift back. At the end of the day, most people are not addicted to a certain mode of transportation. They simply choose the one that gets them to where they need to go quickly, efficiently, and conveniently. Some people might point to autonomous and electric vehicles as a solution and think that with a computer driving the car rather than a human, the traffic problems we face today can be resolved. But even if autonomous vehicles drive perfectly, which they are far from doing so today, the same underlying pattern of induced demand can still appear. When the car can drive itself, it makes it more convenient, so people adjust their travel behavior. People may choose to drive more, and those who took public transit may shift to cars. This is exactly what we've been talking about throughout this video. But there's another layer to this system. Even when a road network becomes more efficient, traffic doesn't just decreases in a straight line. Instead, the way traffic is distributed across the system changes, and congestion can reappear in different parts of the network. This is known as Brough's paradox. Also, we have to remember the physical limits of single-occupancy private vehicles. No matter how advanced cars become, a 2-track rail line can still move more people than a wide highway, which takes up more land but is way less efficient in transporting people. On top of that, car dependency tends to encourage urban sprawl, with low-density development and separated land use. And that's not ideal, especially at a time when many cities are facing housing shortages and a growing need for more dense, walkable neighborhoods. If there's one thing I hope you take away from this video, I hope it's this. Transportation is not an isolated system. Any change we make to it could change people's choices on where to live, how to travel around, and our city's land use and development patterns. Transit has been proven again and again as an effective way to reduce traffic congestion. Unfortunately, many cities' transit systems are at risk. One of them is the San Francisco Bay Area, where transit agencies in the area might have to close stations, cancel lines, or eliminate weekend service if proper funding doesn't get secured. Learn about it in this video.